So, well, here we go again. Another week has come and gone, and we're back with Championship Rugby League with our Craig. How are you, mate? Well,
yeah, I'm very well, mate. How are you?
Yes, very well indeed. An interesting weekend of Rugby League. Let's start there before we get to the Championship. Challenge Cup. Now we've got semi-final. First and foremost, two incredible semi-final clashes on the way. The repeat of last year's final, of course, the derby, Wigan against St Helens. That's one for the popcorn, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's. I think regardless if we all got through to the semi-finals, I think we're going to be cracking sides either way. But certainly Wigan Saints seems to be the standout, isn't it?
Well, I mean, especially as well with the way that Saints beat Wigan the other week. I mean, there's going to be a bit of spice you'd expect in that one. Of course, two blowouts really. York, unfortunately for York, injuries plagued their opportunity really. And to be fair, Mark Applegarth's not probably going to be judged on a Challenge Cup. It would have been nice for them if they'd have got a bit further, but I think, they probably would have expected it to have been a tough day at the office there. And of course, Catalan with the announcement this week that Joel Tompkins is leaving the club for personal reasons. They did look like a rudderless ship, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. I was really disappointed with Catalan, and obviously with the departure of Joel Tompkins, I don't know whether that was expected. Anyway, it sounds like he'd not been in and around the club for a couple of weeks. Anyway, so I don't really see that maybe played a huge impact if he'd not been in and around the club. But who knows? You don't know what's going on inside the camp, do you?
No, much improved Lee Leopards came to Warrington off the back of a really poor performance from Lee the week prior. And really, I mean, I don't know if you caught up on that game, but they should have been 14 points to 6 up had the goal kick better in that game, and that could have been a very different game. But at 10-6, Warrington managed to turn the ship around and get through 24 points to 10 in an error fest, really, but a very compelling game. The Wire will be aiming to go to Wembley for the third year in a row. Come the semis.
Yeah, it's amazing how they seem to find the form in the Challenge Cup. And you mentioned there about goal kicks. I think it's an art in the game that people underestimate until you realise that you've not got a recognised goal kicker. It's an old John Kay saying it's a goal is half a try. So it's when you've got a goal kicker that's regularly converting your fours into sixes, it makes a massive difference, particularly in close games.
Absolutely. And then we had the game of the semi. What a game at the DIY. I mean, it had everything. A proper, I mean, if you could actually package up a cup tie, there you go. A cracking game of rugby league. Of course, Wigan just about getting through 26 points to 22. And the big talking point in this is what happened around the Tavanga incident with Harry Smith. We were talking about this last night. I think Tavanga was very lucky. Quite frankly, if we look at the rules of the game, he's kicked out, regardless if it's been an instant spontaneous response. You can't do it. Very lucky not to get a red. But in the same passage of play, Harry Smith has put hands on potentially an injured player, which again is in the rules of the game and has since been given a 3-game ban. Now, because both of those incidents were picked up on video, are you surprised that the video referee didn't say to the referee on field, look, you've got two problems here. One, Tavanga has kicked out, and secondly, Harry's put his hands on an injured player, so you're going to have to deal with both. Are you surprised that didn't happen?
Yeah, 100%. I think because they're both part of the same incident, everything should be reviewed and everything should be looked at, everybody's involvement in that. When you've got a coming together of players, if somebody had a cocked a right hand back and punched him at the end of chin, then that would have been dealt with as well in exactly the same way as it should be. But yeah, 100% agree with you. I think it should have been a red card. He's deliberately kicked out, regardless of whether he feels like something's been done to him or not. But as you say, in the same instant as well, if it's deemed that somebody's put hands on an injured player, that's a big no-no, and that needs to be dealt with as well at the same time.
Yeah, and my thoughts on Wakefield in this, just to bring this piece of the show to a close, I thought this was another step forward for Wakefield in the fact that, one, they competed very, very well in the quarter-final of a Challenge Cup against a great outfit like Wigan. But not just that, because the game got a little bit biffy, I think Wakefield got drawn too much into that. There was an incident where I think, I know Mike McMeekin was one where the play was going on. I think they conceded as well off that set, where a couple of the players were too busy on the halfway line having a bit of biff when the play was on. And that's game smarts. And that's something they've just got to learn, isn't it? That, look, the bottom line is forget that, get back in your defensive line. And maybe in emotional games like this, Matt Peake said it, didn't he? The team that handles the emotions better might win it. And there was a bit of that, wasn't there?
Yeah, 100%. I thought Wigan, particularly the last 10 minutes, that they closed the game out really well. I thought they handled the situation a lot better. I thought the sets were better. The kicking game from Harry Smith just to turn Wakefield round. And when they got the ball, they were coming out of their own 20-metre area, which meant that they didn't really have any a massive amount of position or possession to put points on the board. So I just thought Wigan had maybe a little bit more experience in the big game situations where they know how to close the game out. But certainly for Wakefield, I think where Wakefield have come from over the last 2 or 3 years, I think they're now going to be regularly competing with the top six. So historically, you've maybe thought Wakefield, they'll do well to get into the playoffs. I think now where they are as a club on and off the field, I think they're considered one of the big boys now. And I think the longer they continue to do what they're doing, like I said, on and off the field, and the recruitment phase that they seem to be going through now, they're looking at now developing a club where, again, historically, people have always left Wakefield to go and win silverware at other clubs. But they've got the potential now with all the plans that they've got, building their own training facility as well, the purpose-built training facility, which can be state-of-the-art. They've got potential now to start building their own dynasty where these young people that are coming through the scholarship and the academy into the first team, there's no reason for them to leave now unless they want to go into the NRL. So there's a real opportunity now for Wakefield to continue to do what they're doing and build a real modern day legacy that they're challenging for Challenge Cups, they're challenging for league titles, they're challenging for Super League winners. So I think it's a really exciting time for Wakefield.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And of course, they're also managing to prize some top talent. They've got Jack Sinfield, obviously, from Wakefield. Rumour has it now, and then McCormack's going there next year in centre. So, like I say, the pull of Wakefield is starting to happen as well. It's a really good news story. We wish Darryl well. Right, let's get into the Championship. Let's stop this nonsense talking about things that don't concern you. Jordan Abdul back for Widnes, and Widnes win 20 points to 10 at Dewsbury.
Yeah,
good win.
It's a very good win. It's very, very tough going to Dewsbury. They've been unlucky over the last couple of weeks. Last minute drop goal from Batley with they lost by a point, and then they obviously lost against Sheffield the week before after the Utah. So I mentioned last week they're competing regularly, put themselves in positions to win games, and it's probably disappointing for Dewsbury this week that they were 20 points down before they effectively started doing what they needed to do. But a 10-point defeat against Widnes, who have been an established Championship side for a number of years, I think good strides forward for Dewsbury. I think with the team that they've got, Dewsbury, they've got a real competitive team that work hard for each other. But I think, like you said, with Jordan Abdul, I think looking back at the highlights there, his kicking game proved vital in how they scored the points and how they built field position. I think we all know that Jordan's probably not where he wants to be physically, fitness-wise, but he's getting through games. He doesn't look like he's being exposed. He's got the brain, he's got the knowledge, he's got the experience and how to manage a game. He's an absolute top-quality player.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. He just brings that game management piece to it. But you mentioned there about being 20 points to 0 down. Not for the first time this season. A team switched off in the second half and allowed Dewsbury back in. And that's a concern for Widnes, having had such a commanding lead to then be nilled in the second half. That'll disappoint Alan Coleman, surely.
Yeah, I think it will. But I think there's two sides to that. There's one side is how Dewsbury played in that first half. Did they do what they wanted to do? Did they do what they needed to do? Were they well below par where they have been recently? And if they were, then they got back up to somewhere around par, then they're going to compete even more in that second half. Conversely to that is, did Widnes switch off in that second half knowing they were 20 points up? So there's two elements of that. And I guess you control you try and control what you can control, which is how you see out a game, how you complete your sets, how you defend, your attitude to, I guess, killing the game off. And that maybe weren't there for Widnes, but let's give credit to Dewsbury that they maybe performed a lot better in that second half than they did in the first half.
Two winning sides collided at Halifax. Halifax went into that game 2 games to the good, 4 games to the good Oldham. They've took it to 5 games to the good, and this is another good step in the right direction for Oldham. 28 points to 12 against Halifax away from home. Good result, this.
Yeah, it is. It's resurgent Halifax. We know we spoke about Halifax previously with the squad limitations that they've got, but the 17 that they're putting out there on the field, it's still a very, very strong 17. And Oldham, as you say now, 4 games previous to that, they'd won now 5 out of 5 on the bounce, and they're just showing how strong they are with the quality of the squad that they've got, regardless of who's playing there. People that are coming in, coming out. I know they sent 2 out on loan to Salford as well to get some game time. So they've got strength in depth that if people are dropping out, they've got some quality players that can come in and fill their spots as well. So I think in terms of injuries and bodies wise, they're in a real good position at the minute, which certainly helps them for competition, for placing that 17, but also if anybody does drop out, they're not really losing anything when the next person comes in.
Yeah, interesting in the starting lineup this week. I don't know if you spotted this for Oldham. Of course, they have Morgan Smith and Josh Drinkwater in the hours. You talk about kicking game. I mean, Josh Drinkwater, very similar to what we said about Jordan Abdul, really marshalled Oldham well. So they put Riley Dean in the centre.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's fitting him in. Yeah, no, neither do I. But I guess physically wise, he's got that presence. I don't know how many games he's played out there, whether he's used to running them sort of lines. He's a running halfback anyway, so he likes to get the ball in his hands and attack the line. But it's completely different defending an extra person out, running the lines, and trying to isolate defenders one-on-one as a centre than it is as a halfback. But I guess when you've got Drinkwater, you've got Smith, you've got Jack Walker, and then you've got Riley Dean as well, it's trying to fit all them people in and keeping everybody happy.
Yeah, well, it's like when we were kids. Remember the Rosie's tins when you used to always get the dairy milks and the little wrappers, and that was the one you went for. It's like he wants all them in. Forget everything else, just get all them in. You know what I mean? Yeah. The kids don't have a clue what we're talking about, but we know what was at Christmas. But yeah, you talk about Oldham and spine. I mean, you mentioned Jack Walker there. We mentioned him last week. It is a very, very good spine that Oldham have got. Walker, Smith and Drinkwater, Riley Dean, of course, can slot in there. Matty Wilde, of course, plays at 9. Adam Milner as well at playing 13. It's got a lot of experience in that spine, hasn't it, at Championship level?
Yeah, it's got a lot of experience, but it's got a blend of different talent and different skill sets as well, which I think is really important. That you can't have everybody that does exactly the same job. You've obviously got Josh Drinkwater, who's the conductor, the chief organiser. You've got Morgan Smith, that's more off the cuff and is a sport player. You've got Jack Walker, we know Jack Walker's skills and traits as well. But then you've got other people, Matty Wilde, who's been in and around Championship for a number of years, who's really, really dependable and solid. And obviously As Milne as well, who's that link between the middles and the halfbacks that's got that Super League experience and that game know-how. So you've got a lot of skill sets, a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience across that spine, which is it's very, very difficult to find any weaknesses in that.
Absolutely. Midland Hurricanes up to second. Bit of a game this as well. Workington 20, Midland 24. Fair play to Workington. I thought Midland would possibly find it a little bit more comfortable at that, but at no point, I think the biggest lead they had in the game was 18-8. It was always, they got ahead and they stayed ahead. They didn't get clawed back in, but I expected a bigger margin there. So I would like to give a bit of a rap to Workington, because I thought they had a good knock against them, but you can't take anything away from Midland. They're playing some superb rugby league at the moment.
Yeah, they are. And we've said it before that any win up in Cumbria is a very, very good win, regardless whether it's 2 points or 20 points. And I think sometimes when you win these tight games, you take a lot out of that, because if you're not at your best, or you've been pushed and you've been challenged, and you've come through the other guard, it is, and you get your 2 points on the board. Nobody remembers that you've only won a game by 2 points, because you've got the 2 points on the league ladder. It's at second in the table now, so that's all that matters. Anything that they didn't believe went well in that game for them, they can review that based on the fact that we've won the game. Let's have a look where we can get better. But certainly Workington, massively improved performance from them to challenge Midlands, who are sat, like I said, second in the table. So they'll take a lot of hope and a lot of faith from that themselves.
Absolutely. Barrow continue their current winning streak, 46 points to 12 at Rochdale. To be fair, Rochdale got off to scored first in this one, but then that's as good as it got from there on in. It was really the Barrow show. Yeah,
well, I think they'll do a big two-stroke Barrow. I think again, similar to Dewsbury, Rochdale have got a team that are real game. They'll continue to work as hard as they possibly can for that 80 minutes. And listen to Gary Thornton's interview after the game. He's admitted himself and maybe just lack a little bit of quality at times. There's no lack of effort. There's no lack of people trying as much as they possibly can and continuing to go for the 80 minutes. But in games when you're playing against the established Championship teams or the old Championship teams, there's just that little bit of quality that's turning the games. There were a couple of times in that game as well where Barrow went back to back and put 2 scores on the board within 2 or 3 minutes of each other as well, which is a bit of a killer, especially if you're tight within the game. You can go from being 4 points down to being 12 or 16 points down in 2 or 3 minutes. It can be a little bit of a kicker, can that? And that happened a couple of times in that game where Barrow scored 2 tries within the space of 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah, it was a week, absolutely, and well done to Barrow keeping their foot to the floor. Well done to both Cumbrian teams, of course, working very close and putting a really good knock. But Whitehaven came away from Goole with a 36-22 win. We thought Goole might strike back in this one, but Whitehaven, not a bit of it, had a real solid game. Again, tight match. You know, it ebbed, it flowed, it went one way, it went the other way. Some nice tries in there as well. But lo and behold, you know, Whitehaven, that's a big 2 points for them away from home.
That's massive, yeah. They'll do their conference no end of good as well. And we mentioned last week, didn't we, about Goole, where we spoke quite in quite encouraging terms about how Goole have started the season. But you know, looking at the league table where they are now, they're in desperate need of a couple of victories. You know, so they've been on the end of a few bad defeats for them, I guess, from results point of view, where losing against the teams that are potentially going to be in and around them at the end of the season. But certainly for Whitehaven, it's a massive morale boosting victory. Is that certainly away from home as well? You know, Whitehaven generally are always strong and difficult to beat at home, but to travel away, especially after a long delay as well, for you know the wonderful world of rugby league, again getting postponed for a hand grenade, I guess, on the pitch. Not seen that one before.
You know, these things are sent to try you, Craig. You know, it's a narrative, isn't it? It's a narrative, it's a headline, you know. But yeah, only in rugby league. Only in rugby league. London 48, Sheffield 4. Now, of course, you've only got to look at your squad numbers to know you're doing it a bit tough at the moment. You know, you've got a lot of personnel out. And 48-4 looks hammering. You know, however, when you take into account your injury concerns currently, and when you compare and contrast that to other scores that have been down there, do you come out of this thinking it could have been worse?
Definitely, certainly after the first 5 minutes as well. We conceded 10 points in the first 5 minutes, and you sat there in the stand and you're thinking, well, you know, if you are going to concede points, it might be when you're fatigued later on in the half. It might be when you've been under the pump a little bit late in the game. But certainly when everybody's fresh and the first 2 sets of the game that we've kicked off to them, they've scored, we've kicked off again and they've scored. That's really, really disappointing from a coach's point of view, to be 10 points down when there's no fatigue in there. You can't take anything else into the equation apart from that London were really, really powerful and aggressive through the middle, won a couple of rucks and then exposed some space that we created for them. So really disappointed with how we started. I think we're 26-0 at half time, 28-0 at half time, which you know that can then go into a bit of a blowout score. And then certainly in the second half we lost 2 people to HIAs within the space of 2 or 3 minutes, and lost another player with an hamstring injury. Your backs are against the walls. We were already down in rotations anyway, but they actually dug deep really well, and they scrambled and they were desperate and they went for the full 80 minutes, which as a coach, you've got to try and take some of the positives out of the negatives, and the fact that they actually went and played for the full 80 minutes and they were desperate to defend their own goal line all the way up until the last set of the game. That's a massive positive for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Eppel, of course, was on the played for London. Capine. I'm not quite sure how he says it, but we actually spoke about him a few weeks back. Said what a good signing he looked, and you know he looked a handful, got a few tries as well. What was your, having seen him up close? What, you know, we gave him a few raps from afar. What was your assessment of him up close?
He's a big aggressive presence. You know, there's no airs and graces about him. There's no deception about him. He gets the ball, he runs hard, and he tries to run straight through you. You know, so he scatters people, he creates that disruption within the ruck, and markers aren't set, or you've got a retreating defender that can't get back, which creates a disparity then between the attacking numbers and the defensive numbers. And with the players that London have got, they're too smart and they're too good for them not to expose you when you lose a ruck. And that's the difference between the real top teams and everybody else, that you might win a ruck as a team, but you might not have the know-how or the skills to expose that space that's created. As soon as London get a little bit of a chink in you, they're straight through the other side, or they're rolling you straight down the field, and it might be 3-4 plays later they've scored a try, and that's on the back of real strong aggressive carries that he gives you.
I mean, obviously, everybody's looking at London as a Super League team in waiting, and of course they've started recruitment. A few of these players, if that is the case, will of course go with them. Your thoughts in terms of, for example, a player like that? Do you see a Super League player there?
Potentially, yeah. It's difficult to say when he's not playing in that competition week in, week out. But he's certainly got all the attributes. Like I say, he's very, very direct. He's very aggressive. He does exactly what he says on the tin. I think it depends who you've got in and around him that can complement him. Obviously, at the minute he's playing alongside RCG, and so he's doing a great job as well. So they've got a real good blend of middles that are playing at the minute. Some that have got real good aggressive power behind, and some that are then playing as the links between the middles and the edges. So they've got a nice blend of skill sets there. Would they need to strengthen more to get once again to Super League? Yeah, I think they would. But they've certainly got the financial clout behind them now that if they do get into Super League, and then it brings in now the exposure within the Australian game, the NRL game. They've got that pull with Darren Lockyer being involved now to get the players over to the UK to hopefully grow the game down in London.
Yeah, I mean, interesting. We talked about moving Riley Dean back in the centre. James Meadows played hooker. I mean, James. I mean, how much experience does he have there? How did he go?
We started the season off at hooker for London. So we were playing at hooker, and he was playing as the 14 off the bench, but coming on as a 9 rotation. And then when they lost their halfbacks, or a couple of the halfbacks, he dropped back into his normal, natural role as being a halfback. And do you know what? I thought he was, in the previous 2 or 3 games that I'd seen, I thought he was outstanding playing at halfback. So I was fairly surprised to see him come back in as a 9. I guess when Dean Hawkins comes back in, you've got to find a place for him. You've got Voro as well that's played. You've got Maria who's at fullback. So again, slightly similar to Oldham, they've got them sort of them riches that they've got to try and fit them people into the team. And I think Jimmy's been playing that well that they've dropped him back into that 9 position where, again, I guess defensively, if they're coming up against repeat set, and you've got a team that's got more than 50% possession, then they might find a few chinks in and around Jimmy defensively. But when they're playing with 60-70% of the ball and he's not doing a great deal of defending, then he's got that know-how to expose you around the ruck as well. So he's definitely a bit half than he's hooker, but he's certainly doing well in that position as well.
And of course, you had Jimmy Beckett in on loan from Cast, didn't you? Really good player, Jimmy. Played really well for Featherstone, didn't he? And he's going to have it all on next year at Cast. Of course, Tyler Dupree's been announced at going in. We know Robbie Mulhern's going over there as well, so he's going to have it all on. 1, is the loan being extended, and 2, is that a player that you're looking at maybe for next year?
I'm not sure what Jimmy's situation is contract-wise at Castle for next year. I'm not sure if he just signed this year or if he signed a 2-year deal. We signed the initial loan as a month loan. But these loans now, whether you sign for a season or a month or a week, they're only 7-day loans. Yeah. We can send him back after 7 days. The club can recall him after 7 days as well. So regardless of what length you sign it for, it's just a 7-day loan. We're hoping he's going to be with us this week. We've not had 100% confirmation on that one, but we're hoping he's going to be with us this week. And with the bodies that we've got, we lost two middles this week to HAs. We lost another middle with an hamstring, so we need middle bodies in there. So hopefully we can keep him in there and he can play a few more games for us.
Yeah, I like him. I mean, I take it he's a player that he shows you up surely down the middle. Yeah. He's a proper player, isn't he?
Yeah, very, very honest. He's real aggressive, real direct, but he's got a good engine on him as well for a big man doing this. He played a lot of minutes for us this week. I think he played nearly an hour. So really, really good for us. Especially when we'd lost. Yeah, we'd lost their middle rotations, and you're doing a lot of defending when you're playing against London. So I thought engine-wise, you were really, really good for us.
Robbie Mulhern-esque. I think Robbie did about 65 minutes at the weekend. I mean, that for a middle unit in a game like that. They don't get enough. They don't get the raps they deserve, these middle units, mate. We've got to make sure they get the flowers. I mean, absolutely superb. Well done. Keighley 66, North Wales 10. Of course, a lot of buzz again around North Wales in terms of where they are currently, and of course that transfer unfortunately transferred itself into a result here. Bad news for North Wales, but a timely win, I think, for Keighley. They needed this one, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. We mentioned a few times now they've lost a few games that they would have targeted to be wins, and this was another one of them games that they targeted to be a win. I guess with everything that's going on at North Wales, the rumours that you're hearing, the stories that you're hearing about payments and not payments and all this sort of stuff, I think it was just fortunate they actually got a team on the field that went out there and played. So it doesn't sound great for North Wales, unfortunately, and I hope something can be sorted out fairly soon for them. But it does look a little bit like the writing might be on the wall, which is very, very disappointing and frustrating. But I guess for Keighley, their focus would have been solely on getting 2 points in that game, and a thoroughly professional job, and they did that.
9 players got on the score sheet. I mean, talk about spread the love on the field.
Yeah.
But like I say, hopefully, and my concern as well, not only for the players but all of the people behind the scenes as well. It's never good when you hear these type of things. Hopefully they can find a solution for that in the not too distant future. Another team that desperately needed a win, and a team we wouldn't have expected them to get it against, Hunslet 34, Newcastle 32. What a ding-dong this one was. Brilliant entertainment. And Hunslet, like I say, timely win for them. Yeah,
definitely. I think we were a bit undecided on this last week, weren't we? Depending on what sort of squad Newcastle might have, based on the fact that York was struggling for injuries. But Hunslet brought in 4 players from Leeds themselves to strengthen them, and I think that certainly helped them in that game. I think there were several of them Leeds players that either scored or provided passes for the tries as well. So it just shows that if you get a little bit of extra quality in coming in from Super League, and it can fatten out the sort of depth that you've got in your squad, it can make a massive difference. And I think that was certainly a contributing factor for Hunslet at the weekend. But yeah, as you said, really timely victory for them, and hopefully they'll be looking at using that now as a bit of a confidence builder to try and get another couple of quick victories on the board.
Absolutely, and you talk about imports for the week. Salford, Salford 29, Batley 20. I mean, what a win for Salford. I mean, I think nobody would have given a prayer in that game. But they brought a few of the Warrington boys in. Zach Gardner was in there for them. Tom McKinney, I know well. Obviously, Leon Hayes. And what struck me in terms of watching this is how fluid they looked. Consider they brought people in. Their attacking shape looked really good on the day.
Yeah, I think it's difficult as you've got to feel a little bit for James Ford and Batley here, because he'll have prepped all week. He'll have watched the previous games that Salford have played, and he'll have a bit of an idea about what sort of team he might be playing against. And then on Thursday, you'll see the news that they've brought seven players in on loan, and it's a completely different entity that you're planning and playing against. And then I guess it reverts back to, right, let's control what we can control. Let's make sure that we're defending well. Let's make sure that we're completing our sets, we're ending our sets in the right areas of the field, rather than what the opposition might or might not do, because you don't know what team it's going to be, what sort of combinations they're going to throw out at you. So, I think it's a bit frustrating at times when teams are bringing people in on such short loans, on 7-day loans. And again, we play Salford in a couple of weeks' time, so that might be a situation for us that we have to deal with. That next week there's no reserve team fixtures, so that's generally when players or teams lose their 7-day loan players, and then the week after they might come back again. So these sort of teams that are utilising the loan market week on, week off, if the teams are taking their players back to play in the reserve competition, then it's that week on, week off that you're going to be strong. You might be weak, you might be strong, you might be weak, and it's getting that prep right as an opposition coach is very, very difficult to prep against what you might or might not be playing against.
Yeah, I mean, really pleased for Leon, because of course this was the scene of the crime when he did his leg. So for him to go back to Salford and of course be the match winner with that drop goal, it's a nice story, that, isn't it? That happened for Leon on the day. A great player, but yeah, what a win that is. 29-20. And do you know what, Craig? In some respects, we gave a lot of raps for the Wigan Wakefield game at the DIY. This equally great advert for rugby league. Everything you'd want, it went one way, it went the other way. It was a proper seesaw on the scoreboard, and then a drop goal to finish it off. What more do you want? Incredible advertisement for the game. Yeah,
an exciting game, mate. Like I said, when Nippen took all the way through, I guess at any point in the game you could have picked either team to win that game. And then looking at the drop goal as well at the end, it was a fairly decent waft of the left foot to send it through the sticks from a bit of a distance as well, wasn't it? So I think they were like sort of less than 90 seconds from the end of the game, so it's not a bad way to stamp your mark on your debut for the club, is it?
Well, there's nothing you can do about it at that time, mate, is there?
There's not.
It's one of those, isn't it? It's head in hands job at that point, isn't it? There's absolutely nothing you can do.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Let's just take a quick look at the league table. Here we go. So this is how it looks. Halifax still bottom there. Then Swinton, Goole, as you say, they've really started to, after a really solid start, they've really found the way down to the bottom side of the table. Whitehaven, like I say, big win for them, takes them above those three sides. Workington after those. Then Salford at 15th. I mean, again, what a story that is. I mean, this wasn't a club. So, wherever they finish, it was all about being on the field. But at this moment in time, that is quite a result from a Salford perspective. Crusaders, there they are on 14 points. Then Hunslet, Batley, and then Keighley. As we go into the top 10 in the Championship, Rochdale now hanging on in there. Then it's Dewsbury. Sheffield are in 8th. Widnes 7th. Oldham now up to 6th. Newcastle remain in the top 6 there at 5th. Barrow with 4. No Donny game, of course, this week. They had their week off, so they dropped to 3rd, with Midland Hurricanes now slotting in 2nd spot. And, of course, the London Broncos lead the Championship. Well, it's time to have a week off from the Championship because this is back. The 1895 Cup is this week. Of course, Sheffield will be in action as well. We'll get to them shortly. But we'll start. Well, I'll tell you what, let's just go in order, shall we? Let's start with the London Keighley game. Now, as much as Keighley had a result the weekend, it's a different proposition going to London. Are we expecting a home win?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Don't think we need any more than that, do we?
Yeah, it doesn't really need much more than that. Now we go to, like you say, Salford fans might be getting a bit giddy, but as you say, those loanees will probably now be going back to their parent club because Reserve Rugby League is back. When they met each other in round 5, Donny put 78 points to 8 on Salford. So on that basis, you would expect Donny to take Salford out, wouldn't you, really?
Yeah, you would. On field advantage, the way that Doncaster have played, the strength that they've got, they might rotate a few people out as well and make sure that they're maintaining the fitness of the squad that they've got. But with them having a week off last week, Richard Orme might go with what he believes is his strongest 17 for the week after, the league game week after, and try and get a bit of consistency. So, yeah, I can't see anything other than a Doncaster victory.
Now, this happens. We've just seen the Halliwell Jones with Lee. Here we go again. Plug and play. Repeat time. Last week's game, Dewsbury Rams, Widnes Vikings. What do you know? It's the 1895 Cup game, 20 points to 10. We already said that, Widnes got off to a flying start, in that game, and Dewsbury brought it back in the second half. Dewsbury will be hoping for a stronger start, and if they get a stronger start, it could be a lot closer, this one.
No, I don't think it will. I think it'll be. Yeah. I think it'll be a convincing Widnes win. I think listening to Marchie in his after-match interview, he's already said that he's going to bring a lot of players in for the debuts who have not played. It's he said that after the recent games that they've had, there's a few players that need a bit of a rest and a bit of recovery, and this is an option for them now just to leave a few players out and rest a few, and then blood a few of the local amateur players that they've brought in that are training for them. So I think it'll be a much changed Dewsbury side. So I think if Widnes go with the team they went with this week, or a strong team, I think it might be a comfortable victory for Widnes.
That's why it's called Championship Rugby League with Craig Lingard. He knows his stuff, and happy days, lovely stuff. Goole Vikings taking on Whitehaven. Yeah, I mean, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, well, that's the repeat of the game this week as well, isn't it? Something to do with Widnes. Yeah, I was going to say it could be an explosive one after the hand grenade, but that seems a little bit silly, doesn't it? But I guess Goole we're looking for home field advantage to try and get them through the game, won't they? But it's a toss of the coin for me, depending on who starts the game better, I guess. But it's difficult. It's a difficult one to call. Is that? But I'm going to go. I don't know. No, yeah, I'm going to go Goole. Let me go with Goole.
You're going to go Goole. You think? And again, Lee nearly did it, didn't they? Lee nearly did it. The amount of times we do see it go the other way. And like I say, Lee, and I don't know if that's a bit of complacency from the winning side, a little bit of right, we're going to show you next week from the losing side, but it happens so much in sport, doesn't it? So it wouldn't.
It does. That's maybe the Goole and the Whitehaven one's maybe a slightly different one because it weren't a blowout victory, it weren't a blowout score, so I can't see any complacency creeping in, and I've just gone with Goole just because that I looked at the screen and I can see Goole's name. It's not through any not through any sort of gut feeling that I've got, and it could quite easily be Whitehaven.
Then we've got Oldham taking on Hunslet. Of course, they have played each other this year. They played each other at Oldham, and it was a convincing win as well for Oldham, 44 points to nil. Oldham are in great form. Hunslet, like I said, good win, great win last week for them. But Oldham, we must remember that Oldham now are on a 5-game winning streak, and that would a home advantage as well. Plus the score between these two earlier in the season. It's hard not to see an Oldham win, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. With Keith seeing here yesterday as well, and he was saying that bodies-wise they're really struggling. And I would imagine that with Leeds having a reserve team game this week, I reckon the 4 bodies that played for Hunslet this week will be back at Leeds playing the reserve comp, which means that weakens them a little bit more. Oldham 5 out of 5 home field advantage. You can't really see any other victory apart from Oldham.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. Newcastle Batley. Both will be disappointed off the back of the weekend, and both coaches will want a response, no question about it. This could be a game, this one.
I think it could, yeah. Again, it's one of them where you can't really choose a winner. Knowing Batley like I know Batley, it's very rare that you'll get 2 bad performances or 2 bad results on the bounce at Batley. So they'll certainly be looking at going up there and trying to get the victory. But as I said, Newcastle as well, they're smarting off the back of a loss themselves. And does home field advantage help them this week? I don't know. It's another close one, I think.
Yeah, I mean that could be, when you look down that list of games, that one for me potentially could be tie the round. Could be.
Yeah, I think so. I think if you're picking a TV game, it'd be Newcastle versus Batley.
Yeah, it's got the flavour, hasn't it? There's no doubt about that. North Wales taking on Midlands. Again, you can't see past Midlands. The way Midlands are playing at the moment, and of course, what's going on at North Wales, even regardless of what's going on at North Wales, Midland are in great form. You'd be very surprised, wouldn't you, if this wasn't a Midland win?
Yeah, you would. I think Midlands will be too strong. Like I said, regardless of what's going on with North Wales at this moment in time, I think Midlands would be too strong anyway. But I think the issue that we've got with North Wales is that, like I said, it seems like the writing's on the wall. But then what happens if they do leave the competition? We've got another situation that we've had with Halifax potentially going, but Featherstone going after the fixtures were already issued, and we've got now teams that are having to play games on weekends off. Games, it might be Sunday, Wednesday, Sunday, or Saturday, Tuesday, Sunday, just to get the games in. These are part-time players. So if North Wales go, then you've still got other teams now that have got North Wales to play between now and the end of the season. So what happens with that fixture? What happens? Do we give them teams some more replacement fixtures that they've got to fit in midweek games? It's very difficult, and it's a little bit frustrating. And I mentioned previously to different people, the reason why we got rid of the Good Friday, Bank Holiday Monday games was because of the quality of the game, the safety for the players, and that's in full-time competition. But we're now asking part-time players to play 3 games in 7 or 8 days, potentially 3 or 4 times in the season, and it's not on. I know Barrow were travelling down to Doncaster on a Wednesday night, and Doncaster travelling back up to Barrow on a Wednesday night as well. We've got part-time players that are working, that are playing the Sunday, then they're travelling on the Wednesday, then playing on the Sunday again. It's a big commitment, and we're talking about the safety of players. And I know the protocol states where possible you'll not play a game within 5 days of your previous one, where possible. That for me is a big comment. It's a big sentence, and I think it is possible, and it's right for teams not to be playing Sunday, Wednesday, Sunday.
And this is why, with these negotiations that we're hearing are going to be taking place in terms of the future of Super League, I think one eye needs to be on the Championship. We've spoke about that before, and I think that we are getting to a point where we're seeing that with Newcastle and York, and with all the players that went out on loan at the weekend. I just can't see how it can't go to an NRL system, which I think benefits everybody. It is a real headache for everybody, that no doubt about it. But let's not forget, round 9, Midland 56, North Wales 18. You'd expect Midland there quite comfortably to get through. And then Rochdale against Sheffield. Now, look, I mean, let's not forget, I can't remember what round it was. Was it around about 6 or 7, I think it was, that you played Rochdale? You won 44-20. I think you were at home, weren't you? Was you at home for that one?
No, we were at Rochdale away.
My apologies. Happy days. So again, a repeat play. However, you are looking very different than in terms of on the field than you were that day. Does that make this a lot harder for people to call?
Yeah, I think so, mate. Yeah, we've lost Jordan Lilly and we've lost Matty Marsh for the season. So losing two of your starting three pivots is critical for us. So we picked up another 3 injuries at the weekend as well. We're already without Joel Farrell and Connor Bauer and Connor Fitzsimmons leading into that game, and Will Oakes didn't play. We trained last night. There were a lot more bodies inside than outside. So it depends on whether we can get people on the field or not. My phone's been ringing and I'm making calls and trying to get people in this week to try and get a 17 out on the park. And I think if we do get a 17 out there, there'll be players that are maybe 60 or 70% fit and probably shouldn't be playing. But we've got a few guys that are putting their hands up and say, look, I'm not quite ready, but if you need me, I'll play. So we'll see what we've got on the field. We'll try and get through it as best we can. And I know the 17, if we do get the 17 out there on the field, that I know that there'll be 100% commitment there from them. So hopefully we can go out there and do the job.
Well, it'll be an interesting game, no doubt about it. Let's just confirm when these games are being played. Saturday, we've got Doncaster, Salford and North Wales against Midland, both 3 o'clock kickoffs. And then on Sunday, again, 3 o'clock kickoffs right the way through the programme. Dewsbury against Widnes, Goole Whitehaven, London Keighley, Newcastle Batley, Oldham Hunslet and, of course, Rochdale against Sheffield. Get yourself down to one of those games. Show your support to these teams in the 1895 Cup this weekend. And as was proven in quite a lot of those games this weekend just gone, in Championship Rugby League, sometimes there's some absolute belting ding-dongs that go on, and it's well worth a day out, a little pint, little pie, bit of rugby league. What more do you want? What more do you want? You know what I mean? Outstanding stuff. Mate, because your phone's busy, we're not going to extend it any further than that because you've got things to do and know. But as always, a big thank you for sparing your time and giving this Championship roundup. We'll be back reviewing the 1895 Cup performances this weekend. And, of course, then I think we're up to, is it round 11 officially? In Championship. Unbelievable. Where's the season going? But on behalf of us both, we hope you've enjoyed it. We'll be back next week. Bye for now.